Our next story is a testament to the powerful bond between women. When a young teacher in Texas becomes the victim of a horrible crime, a group of fearless women rush to her aid. But who are these brave ladies? The answer will amaze you. Melanie Gable, a fifth-grade teacher in Colleyville, Texas, had been married less than 2 years when she became the victim of a random act of violence.
On June 17th, 1995, my husband Mike and I were working in our yard. It was a normal sunny Saturday in our quiet town.
But all that was about to change as Melanie left her home that day to do some power walking around her neighborhood.
About a mile from here, I walked into a subdivision and I found a man sitting in his truck in the middle of a driveway, and he was parked sideways. And I just thought that was kind of odd. He looked at me and I kept walking, and I just thought something wasn't right. Maybe this guy is up to no good. For whatever reason, I made a mental note of his license plate.
In spite of Melanie's suspicions, the man moved on and she dismissed the whole event.
So I realized, speaking to myself, oh, you were paranoid, it was nothing. You know, you always are too guarded. So I dropped my guard and I continued to walk.
But Melanie's suspicions were real. The driver had traveled around the block to come up behind her, and she didn't realize he was there until it was too late.
This loud engine was coming in my direction, where I could hear it and I could almost feel it. I turned around and the front of the truck hit me full impact.
Both of Melanie's legs were instantly broken and her elbow shattered, yet she remained conscious and watched as the man got out of the truck and approached her.
He was smiling, and I remember my first thought was, oh, it was an accident. He didn't mean to do that. But as he walked closer to me, I saw that his smile was a sick smile. And he was looking at me as if to say, oh, does it hurt? We struggled in the street, we fought. I was throwing as hard a swing as I could, and he continued to hold on to me, and he said, I'm not leaving you here, you're my evidence.
As her attacker forced her into the truck, Melanie realized that this was probably her last chance for survival, but she was too weak to do anything but call out for help one last time.
God, help me now!
At that moment, I screamed out, God, help me now. And the entire neighborhood instantly ran towards the truck to help me. And I remember women more than anything else. I remember a grandmother very clearly in blue shorts and a yellow t-shirt, kind of a heavy-set lady, and she was running towards me with such determination.
As the women approached the truck, Melanie's attacker panicked and drove away. Melanie found herself on the ground in the comforting arms of a neighbor, Bob Phillips, surrounded by a crowd of women.
She said, please stay with me, don't let him hurt me again. Even when the ambulance came, she didn't want me to leave her. She was just frightened that this guy would come back.
But Melanie's quick thinking earlier that day would be her best protection. Detective Xavier Badillo explains.
Even throughout this whole ordeal, Melanie remembered pretty much the majority of the license plate. And we did some research through some database, and we were able to make a match. And we all swarmed on that house, and that's where we apprehended the suspect.
3 weeks after the assault, Melanie was finally strong enough to hold a press conference.
And everyone was asking, is there anyone that you would like to thank?
I want to thank all the neighbors that came out to help me. There was this grandmother in her shorts and t-shirt.
Well, it was some days later that the police department came forward and said, we can't find any of those people.
When we went back to canvass the neighborhood after we were doing our crime scene search, we couldn't find anyone. The officers knocked on a lot of doors, and nobody had actually ever come out of their house.
Bob Phillips was the only person who had heard her cries that day.
Help me!
I later found out that she'd called for help 4 or 5 times.
God, somebody help me!
And it was only when she said, God help me, someone help me that I heard her. The police thought it was impossible for me to hear her. The door was closed, the TV was on, but I heard her as clear as if she was standing right here beside me. When I came outside, all I saw was a pickup truck and this man beating this woman and stuffing her into the passenger side of the truck, and there was no one else on the streets. So I yelled and then sprinted over to where he was.
Later, when Melanie heard Bob's story, she was astounded. But after many discussions with those closest to her, she came to her own conclusion. The women she'd seen that day must have been angels.
There was no one within 50 yards of the truck, but just because I didn't see it doesn't mean that they weren't there.
Melanie said she saw angels, and she saw angels, and I believe in miracles. If that's what she says she saw, then that's what it was.
When I returned teaching, my children saw an interview on television where I said,
I want to thank all the neighbors that came out to help me. There was this grandmother in her shorts and t-shirt.
and one of the kids stood up and she had tears all over her face and she said, Miss Gable, that was my Nana. My Nana died a year ago. And right before she died, her last wish was, I just want to help somebody. And she loved my teachers. I know it was her.
As traumatic and painful as her ordeal was, today Melanie looks back at what happened with a sense of profound gratitude to Bob Phillips for coming to her rescue and to the other angels who gathered around her that day in her time of need.